Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host, Raider. And in this video, well, you can already see the background. We're going to have a little bit of a rant on our hands. Now, this video is about the changes that occurred to the M21-1, and let me go ahead and share my screen here. The 12/4/2025 changes to the M21 related to BDD claims processing and IDES claims processing, which are both these are both claims that are filed by service members who are still in service that meet the criteria for the BDD process. Now, I'm going to say bottom line up front, these are bad changes, and I will explain my position on the numerous tabs that I have that will go through, and I will objectively look at this and tell you exactly why this is a bad idea. Like this doesn't match any precedent. This doesn't match anything that matches reality. And I'm going to take a moment before I go into this to explain just a little bit about the VA process. Okay. So sometimes when individuals in leadership want to change how things are done in the VA, like how staff process things, they want to change the course of the ship. Well, rather than go to Congress and have certain 38 CFRs undone, what they will do is they will put out guidance like this, and that's okay. It's okay. Calm down. And what'll happen is that the guidance that they put out is meant to push staff members to behave a certain way in the face of clear 38 CFRs and clear M21 manual references that state the contrary. And the only reason why they want the staff to do that is that they want the staff to behave the way that they want them to behave because they personally disagree with a portion of the manual. Luna, it is okay. I am not that upset about this, even though it is very upsetting. So what we're going to dive into is I'm going to explain, number one, what the changes are. And the changes themselves might seem legitimate on their face, but then I will get into the 38 CFRs as to, and the M21 itself, as to why this doesn't make any sense. And so let's go ahead and start by going into F. So section F, I've got a PDF up here. Now, with these particular changes in the Word document that I've converted over to a PDF, changes that are made to the M21 manual are highlighted in yellow. So the reasons for notable change are right here, and this doesn't really tell us anything. And my dog's on one today, so I'm sorry. But you come down here and you're just looking for the yellow things. So some of these, like I've said in other videos, they don't really matter. It's just a grammatical change, or it's just the way something's written. This doesn't hurt anything. But what we're going to come down here for is we're going to scroll all the way down, and you're like, wow, it's a big change, but it doesn't have anything to do with anything. But so here's the change right here. So it happened on December 4th, 2025, and then the actual changes is they've changed this to say conditions that are legally ineligible for service connection to include, and then they talk about congenital conditions and or defects. It says do not provide an examination for. So the changes that happen to BDD claims are basically saying, look, if the condition that's being claimed is a congenital condition, do not get an exam for that particular condition. All right, because it's congenital, it's a birth defect, it's some kind of thing that they say cannot have any kind of condition related to service. Now, when we come down here, they give manual references for conditions that are legally ineligible for service connection. They say, see all of these manual references. And I mean, they're throwing it all in there. Congenital developmental defects, refractory errors. See all of these manual references to say, okay, we should not be getting service members who are claiming BDD claims, pre-discharge claims. They should not get exams for these things. You cannot get service connected for these things. And if we scroll down here even more, there's not too much more. There's a little bit of just word changing here. And word changing. Here's another change right here. What did they do? Just basically word changing. So some of this is not too much sizzle. But the one thing that is the sizzle portion of this particular manual reference is the fact that the individuals in charge have said, look, do not get them an exam. Do not give them any opportunity to get these things service connected. And I'm gonna kind of take you to the last page and read the ending for you. That's not true. None of this is true. None of this should be happening. You should be getting the exam, and then the rater will determine whether or not the condition qualifies as a disability. Because the way the system works is the VSR will determine whether or not an exam is warranted for the BDD claim, not the rater. So the VSR has no functional understanding of how anything can be made service connected. They don't. And to say otherwise is a blatant lie. They have no clue what sorry, Luna. They have no clue what the requirements are to make something service connected. That's not their job. Remember how I said that they're siloing in the VA? They don't know how to read rating decisions, let alone determine what is or is not able to be service connected. I'll give you the example again. Prostate cancer. They order exams all the time for things that cannot be service connected because there's no biopsy of record. So giving the authority to determine whether or not service members who are pre-discharged should or should not get an exam, giving that authority to VSRs who order the exams is bad. And it's a shadow way to control, in my opinion, giving the authority to determine something that they have that's outside of their scope of practice. The only reason why you do that is because you want them to try to restrict as many exams as possible. And this is not me fear mongering or anything like that. There is no logical reason why you would give somebody who has no functional understanding of what can or cannot be legally service connected, because they're not the legal part of this. They're the get exam part of this. The rater is the legal part of this, where they read and interpret the laws and figure it out. Let's go to the other one real quick. So this one's a little bit shorter, but it's kind of the same thing, where we're coming down here. December 4th changes once again, and it literally has there's not too much here. This is the ERA report, by the way. This is where, okay, so I'm going to take this as an aside. This is the ERA program. Whenever you want to know how the VA determines who does your exam, they put your zip code in here, hit submit, and then it will actually spit out who can do the exam. It'll tell you, it'll like have a bar across the top, and it'll say for each category, it'll say like musculoskeletal, VBA, or, what is it? I forget off the top of my head. But for SHA exams, separation health assessment exams, there's a certain way that you have to do it. So this is just telling VSRs, when they go to order an exam, do not request specialist examinations for conditions that are not subject to service connection. How would they know? How would they know? They have no clue how to do anything. Half the time, and I'm not digging at VSRs right now, I'm just saying, it's an unreasonable expectation and burden to put on VSRs that they have to determine the legality of something. VSRs make no decisions other than to get an exam or not get an exam. Every other action for them is dictated. They should do something or they shouldn't do something. They don't choose things very often. And then right here, when a specialist exam is not warranted for conditions that are not subject to service connection, and see these manual references. Well, they're not supposed to play in these manual references. The VA is very strict about that. QRT is very strict about you stay out of manual references that you have no business being in. And I'll go through 4.9 and 3.3 C and 3.381B. I'm going to go through those. Okay. And we're gonna see why there's such a conundrum here, why there's such an easy way to disparagingly take someone's easiest time to get service connected away from them because somebody was given too much authority outside of their scope of practice. So that's about it for F and C, the two changes. So the two changes here, that's it. We've went through them. It basically says take examinations away from conditions. Do not give examinations for conditions that have congenital defects. Awesome. So we're going to see 38 CFR 4.9 says that mere congenital or developmental defects absent, displaced, or supernumerary parts, refractive errors of the eye, personality disorder, mental deficiency are not diseases or injuries in the meaning of applicable legislation for the disability compensation purposes. 38 CFR Part 4, 4.9. This is why sometimes, guys, like whenever I was historically harping on people that use the CFR more than the M21 manual, is because if you just went on the 38 CFR Part 4 on this, then any congenital or developmental defect could not be service connected. But what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at how the 38 CFRs conflict with each other. And I'm sorry, Luna is just on one today, so I apologize if you hear her woofing. But you're going to see how these conflict with each other. So this right here is an absolute. The dog next door is going nuts. So this is an absolute saying, hey, look, these things cannot be disabilities for VA purposes. Well, if we go back to that section where they were talking about 38 CFR 3.303C, that's one of the sections that they referenced in those changes. It talks down here about how congenital or developmental defects, refractory errors, mental health, they are not diseases for VA purposes. You cannot get them service connected. Let me make that a little bit bigger probably. And then I lost it. I hate that. I make something one size bigger and it just goes away. So, and trust me, I'll get to the point, guys. Sorry for my dog. She's just being bad. So it keeps saying that congenital defects. So if you've got a personality disorder, if you've got, some kind of eye condition, those cannot be disabilities for VA purposes. So Luna, thank you. Please stop. Okay, moving on. So then we go here and we're going to be talking about 3.381, service connection, dental conditions for treatment purposes. This is one of the things that was just identified in there, that you can't get dental issues. This isn't a big deal. But for BDD claims, right, establishing service connection for congenital and developmental or hereditary disorders. This is the part that annoys the crap out of me, is that we're not going to get service members for BDD claims who have congenital disabilities, because they say that a congenital disability cannot be service connected. However, establish service connection if warranted for diseases of congenital or developmental or familial hereditary origin that first manifest themselves during service. When is the best time? Okay, so here it is. Broken. So someone wrote a change to the M21 manual that is meant to curb, service members getting exams for congenital defects, even though it is able to be granted if it first manifested in service. So if their presumption of soundness when they entered service is sound, and they first manifest the symptoms of a condition in service, you get service connected. If you develop schizophrenia, which is a personality disorder, if you develop schizophrenia symptoms in service, guess what? You get service connected. So this is an active effort. This right here, these two changes right here are an active effort to try to limit service connection for congenital defects. Even though it's legal, it's eligible, it's right here. This is what pisses me off. Either leadership wasn't paying attention, which is entirely possible. So what is it? It's either intentional or incompetence. That's what I'm dealing with here. I'm dealing with either they didn't check and they just did a thing, right? They just felt like doing a thing. They didn't review to see what other CFRs, M21 manual references there are. So what's going to happen with this? Well, it's going to sour the VSRs on doing this particular role, because this particular thing right here, this is a raters section. Like, this is how a rater would determine whether or not it's service connectable. Well, and you might ask yourself, well, what is this going to hurt somebody? This isn't going to hurt anybody. Yes, it can. Because I'm going to give you a scenario in which this situation would hurt a veteran. Okay. Let's say the veteran, let's use schizophrenia. And I'm not picking on people with schizophrenia. I'm just saying it's the easiest one for people to understand, is that schizophrenia is a personality disorder, and it would be considered a congenital developmental defect of some kind, because it says it right here. It's a personality disorder. Now, veteran had a presumption of soundness when they entered the service. There was nothing wrong with them mentally. They didn't have any kind of pre-diagnosis before service, and which is fine too, by the way. See how it says pre-existing service-connected conditions that were abnormally made worse by service? Aggravation, that's what this is. You can also get a congenital condition service-connected if it was aggravated beyond its normal progression. I don't understand what's going on here. But anyway, so let me go back to the example. Veteran has schizophrenia, and the dogs outside are going nuts. Schizophrenia, and it first manifests in service. They start getting treatment for it. Well, the VSR looks at that treatment and they go, well, wait a minute. This person shouldn't get an exam because schizophrenia is a personality disorder. So what would normally happen is they should get the exam, they would get diagnosed in service, and we would grant them because it first manifested itself in service. But what the people that wrote this, if it's malicious the way they did this, what they want to have happen is the VSR doesn't get the examination. So what happens is that there's a chance, if the examination happens, like if the rater catches it, they'll order a new examination. If that new examination happens after service, then there is a chance that we would not service connect the condition because it didn't first manifest in service. So, due to this weird process where we're having people that shouldn't be determining whether or not congenital exams do or do not have the criteria to meet the standards to be granted, because they don't grant anything. VSRs don't grant anything. Because we're having them make that determination, there's a much higher likelihood that this gets skipped over, because the exams will happen after service. So the diagnosis will be after service, and it's harder to prove first manifestation unless it's clearly documented. But my question is, why would anyone on earth and under heaven put that determination in the manual to begin with? There's no need to clarify this. There's no need to clarify whether or not congenital defects, congenital conditions, hereditary conditions, whether or not they warrant an exam. They always warrant an exam if the evidence meets criteria for a BDD. Like, this always warrants an exam because it can be granted. These things can be granted. I don't understand this. And it seems like it's a way to try to limit the number of congenital defects that get granted. And congenital things, like, it's also in the beauty, like, congenital is in the eye of the beholder. There is no extensive list of what a congenital condition is. If somebody could believe that, like, in my opinion, bipolar disorder, although a mood disorder, is classified as a personality disorder. So by that logic, I could use my own personal bias and deny, if I was a VSR, I could deny getting an exam for somebody with bipolar disorder diagnosed in service. because it shouldn't be granted in the eyes of the uneducated person. Or a refractory error. Well, refractory errors can actually be service connected. I mean, I don't understand why, and it boils back to that incompetence or intentional, and I don't know which it is. But so if you are a service member, so let's do the very important banner. If you are a service member and you believe that you have a congenital defect of some kind, you need to make sure that it at least gets logged that it first manifested in service, if that is true. Because if you're getting out of the service, we can still technically grant it if it first manifests in service. Do not let the fact that they did not give you an exam discourage you from trying to service connect congenital defects of some kind. I don't get this. Like it bothers me. This bothers me a lot, and I'm probably going crazy. But like you might say, okay, well, doesn't the 38 CFR trump the M21 manual? Well, okay, but I also have the 38 CFR 3.309A that talks about granting congenital defects. Things like psychosis. Psychosis is a personality disorder a lot of the time. Like you can have schizophrenia with psychosis. Most of the time, psychosis happens as a part of, the personality disorder symptomology. I don't understand. And there's a couple of other potential, hereditary things that are on here. Like epilepsies. I mean, you can't have it due to a head injury, but there's some of these, I don't have any off the top of my head, but like there's a list of different things that could be, hereditary. So I don't know, guys. I wanted to talk about this. I know that the people that are filing for BDD are probably not going to find this video very helpful because there's no concrete list of what a congenital defect is. I'm just going to tell you that I don't know why this is happening, but it pisses me off because there's clearly they should be getting an exam, and somebody is just giving authority to people who can't make those decisions, the authority to do it, in my opinion, just so that way they'll hopefully not get an exam for the veteran, and the veteran will just take that and they won't ever fight it. Like you might say, well, that's a pretty dark way to look at it, but what's the alternative? It's either intentional and it's got dark motivations behind it, or it's absolute abject incompetence. And I'm hoping that it's not that level of incompetence, but this is QRT-ish people that are writing this. So, I mean, incompetence could be on the table, but I don't know, guys. So that's about it. I might do this recording another time just because of how much Luna was barking in the background. But yeah. So anyway, that's the update on this. Not my best video ever, but we'll see if we keep it or if we do another one. Anyway, Raider out.